Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Scarborough here, Consolidated Planning Group. We're so happy that you have joined us today. We are here with Anna Kluth with Daisy Consulting and Justin Moehn from Blue Springs. Say the name of your
Sprig,
company.
Blue Sprig.
Right.
Blue Sprig. As soon as I came out of my mouth, I knew it was wrong. That's why I was hesitating. So I apologize for that. Neither Justin or Anna are strangers to us. We've definitely done webinars with them in the past, so we're happy that they are back with us today. We are talking today about building bridges to independence. So we're going to talk deep and wide. So First things first, if you're here for the very first time, welcome. We are so glad you are here. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We do a lot of advocacy by way of our webinars. I myself am a parent to multiple adult children with disabilities. And Consolidated Planning Group, we eat, sleep, and breathe planning for special needs planning in general. And so these webinars were born out of my own frustration as a parent of why is everything we do so hard? Everything. So whether you're talking about Medicaid issues, Medicaid waivers, Social Security, SSI, there's so many things. But a big buzzword that we use all the time is transition. And, what's next? What's next after high school? What's next after, a transition program? Where do we go from here? And how do we help our loved ones have the best life? And I would even argue stretching them into maybe realms or other areas that they've never stepped into before. How could they have, a vocation or something that they truly love? And we think about community and we think about friends and when it comes to that transition, there's so many things: transition in healthcare, transition in education, transition vocationally, those types of things. So we're going to be talking about a lot of that today. So when it comes to Consolidated Planning Group, people come to us, they want to plan for their loved one with a disability. Who's going to care for my child when I'm gone? What programs are out there for my loved one post high school? What college programs? What transition programs? What housing options are out there? How much money do I need to fund a special needs trust? How and when should I apply for public benefits, and how do I not mess those up? There's a lot of fear out there of messing up public programs such as Medicaid and SSI, so we do a lot of education on that. So if you Google the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, you'll see this little flower at the bottom of the screen, and that's how you'll know that you have the right YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that YouTube channel for free. There are over 600 webinars out there on planning for special needs. If you can think of it, we've done it. Special needs trust, guardianship, Medicaid waivers, all of the topics and things that you have thought about before. We've done talks on that because all of them are very complicated. There's a lot of complexity to all of these topics and knowing what you need to do and when. So we definitely try to help you with that. So if you wrote in a question today, I've got it. And I'm going to read that so you don't have to put that question in the chat box. Our chat box is open, and we do invite you to put your questions in the chat box. We're going to get to as many as possible. Everybody that has registered for this webinar is going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording. And I always like to tell people that so they know that they don't have to write everything down that they hear, because you are going to get a copy of the slides. The other thing I'm going to tell you today is there are a lot of slides today. We're not going to get through all of them, but that was intentional. The fact that there are a lot of slides, because we are sending that out to you. We wanted to make sure that you had that information. So having said that, I'm going to turn everything over to Anna and Justin. And again, just a reminder, as we're going through this, just put your questions in the chat box. From a time perspective, we're going for an hour. So if you're planning your lunch or your day or what have you, we are going for an hour today. All right, thanks guys. And we're looking forward to hearing about building bridges to independence. This is a big deal. And, it's something, I call it the constant pursuit of information. As a parent, I have my whole adult life with kids is constantly pursuing information, not to change, because they are who they are, and I'm okay with that. But to give them the tools and resources that they need to be their best self and to love who they are and where they are and what they're doing. And I just feel like today's talk is going to talk about that. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Allison. I'm super excited to be presenting with Justin today. When this idea came about, I had never really done a dual presentation. And so for Justin to come up with this and want to share this space with me, I really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to Allison and Consolidated Planning Group. I have a 12-year-old stepson who has all types of ABC diagnoses, but he's autism, oppositional defiance, dysgraphia, OCD. And just at 12, we're already thinking about his future. And so we, as a family, are using Consolidated Planning Group as well, and they're super supportive, very helpful. And I appreciate their services. And we all have our different areas of expertise. So I know nothing really about financial planning. So this is a great platform to be able to come on and share and do what Consolidated Planning does to intertwine all of the services out there and resources. And again, my name is Anna Kluth. I'm with Daisy Consulting, and I'll let Justin do a quick intro, and then I will reiterate, we have a lot of slides. We are going to try and get through all of them, but that's also why we're going to talk really fast.
Mm-hmm. Hello, I'm Justin. I'm a self-advocate, public speaker. I work for a company, Blue Sprig, with ABA Therapy for Autism. I'm a data entry clerk. I've been with them for 6 years, and still, even there's like things this day, even though I'm on autism, but I work myself and all these things. There's not, not everything I know about, especially there's certain limits on how much you can work, how much you get paid, and everything else before tripping benefits. So like I mentioned about consolidated planning, people like from different departments that know more about this stuff. So let's connect with them and more about that kind of information, all of other things and benefits and aspirations and like the whole other things too on the programs that they mentioned too. Allison mentioned.
All right.
Guardianship and everything else too, kind of stuff too.
That's right. And so here are everything that we are going to try and get through today. So we'll go through an icebreaker. Justin will tell us more about Blue Sprig, what they do and how they support our community, basics of transition planning, all the way to resources. So we'll get started with the icebreaker. On the next slide. And so just a question to ask out there. Justin, do you want to ask?
I mean, pretty much like what goals do you have to set and accomplish? Life goal, dog. There's like a couple things, for example, or like what's your like the ideal, like getting to college, to workforce, being independent, things like that. I mean, I still have some goals of my own that I want to accomplish wise, because I know from mention some of the stuff later about my employment or whatever. I try to break some other things or doing some more advocacy work, for example, and all this stuff out there.
And if you just want to put it in the chat, and this could be small or long-term, short or long-term goals. We won't spend too much time on this because, again, we're trying to get through all the slides.
And is it okay for me to share, Justin, your journey, you've had some diagnoses or whatever, and you're a go-getter and you've made things happen and you are employed. And so you share whatever amount you would like to share just real quick before we move on while we're waiting for people to put in the chat box.
Yeah, so like for me, like when I went to college myself, we got my certification data entry, I else and getting the job of doing that and all the autism advocacy stuff. So that was some of my goals. For example, I wanted to do more of kind of things, law enforcement presentations and other aspects and networking with all businesses and all the things too. And just getting more aware because of how much the autism awareness feels exploded from when I was diagnosed and everything else. So it's like taking its own wise.
So the bottom line is you have an ASD diagnosis yourself, and you went to higher education, and you've taken a lot of strides because you probably had a team behind you as well that was looking of all the things that were possible for you to be your best self. So I love that, and I'm glad that you are here today. So let's see what we have.
And also, yeah, the other thing is I'm also a board member for Hope for Three, so that's another big thing too.
That's awesome. We love that. I love how connected you are from in the advocacy world because it is important. And unfortunately for us, and for anybody that's a caregiver for a loved one with a disability, there seems to not be one central, repository of all great information. And it's very disconnected, and it doesn't matter what state you are in. Some states are better than others, but it doesn't matter. So one person says one of their goals is to hopefully start a nonprofit to help families in my area navigating all things, advocating for my children always. That is an awesome one, and we do see stuff like that. And I'm a part of this collaborative jobs thing, rethinking jobs. And it's how can, we create it? Is it a business? What we find sometimes is sometimes as an independent contractor or a business owner, our loved ones are more successful because there needs to be some flexibility built in around their disabilities. And so we've seen parents start organizations or groups. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a for-profit business with the sole purpose initially that they are going to have their loved one employed. And I know, Anna, you had talked about some cool things that had some like different places that you talked about before where they could try their hand at different things. I think that was in Houston, so I know you're going to talk about that. And then we have one that says, working for Austin Pets Alive with my daughter for 3 years. Original goal was to try it out. And I know we've had some other families that worked with pets as well, which was very rewarding. My kids were in the veterinary science 4-H program, and they had like 500 service hours volunteering for a vet, and it was also very rewarding as well. These are all good. And anybody else that wants to share, don't be shy. We're all friends around here. So, and everything that we talk about stays on here. So, we are happy for you to share any ideas. And if people are interested in being a part of that collaborative of rethinking jobs, like how do we work and maintain our benefits? One question we had today was, how much money is there a threshold for earning? And the substantial gainful amount for 2026 is $1,690 gross earnings per month. And basically, if a person works, if they earn less than 1,690 gross earnings per month, then they would still be considered disabled and basically eligible for benefits. But if they're getting SSI, for every $2 they earn, they take $1 away of SSI. They don't count the first $85. There's a $20 general exclusion, there's a $65 earned income exclusion, but basically after that, for every $2 they take $1 away. So when you're working and getting SSI, it would reduce your SSI benefit, and as long as they're earning less than the SGA, then they won't lose Medicaid. They won't, they'll get to, and if they work and they earn less, sometimes they'll get a smaller SSI check, and then they'll get their earnings. Earnings are not reduced if you're getting Social Security disability, childhood disability benefits, or Social Security benefits. But that threshold of 1690 still needs to be met. Okay, so we kind of went over your introduction. I'm going to keep moving since we have so many slides today.
Yeah, the other thing too is if people already got, but the other thing too, people with Social Security, if you work part time and you still collect, and you make more still if you work part time and you collect SSI, you come out ahead than just collecting SSI alone.
That's right. I mean, SSI is $994 a month. So if a person can work and earn more than the $994 a month, then hey, that's a good thing. Medicaid is not all the be all end all, and we can keep our kids on our group health plan past age 26 if they had a diagnosis prior to age 26. So you can keep them. There is a special form through HR, and you have to ask for it. Not everybody knows about it, including the people at HR. You might get transferred 15 times, but it does exist, and we can keep our kids on our group health plan past age 26. So that's a really valid point. And the other thing is when they are working, guess what? They're paying into that social security system. They're building credits under their own work record, and they're gaining experience. They're gaining all kinds of things. So there is value in that. So, okay, I'm going to turn it back to you, Anna, and let you.
All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Justin, right? Justin, you're going to tell
Uh,
everyone about Blue Sprig and what
yeah,
y'all's mission is there.
yeah. Like the last slide, I mentioned a lot of stuff before, and but yeah, the company I work for, the Change the World for Autism, playing field fall, walking why not, just not judgmental, compassionate, passionate, embrace rules, not status quo, public solid mission wise, so and
And
yeah.
what at what age and what service do y'all mainly
Well,
provide
pretty
at
much we
Blue
do
Sprig?
just the ABA therapy for autism. Most of them are young kids. We get a few older ones here and there. We got locations from East Coast to West Coast wise, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Go to the next slide.
mhm. And children families we serve our heart with everything we do wise. So pretty much helping out work on behavior, the motor skills on their mostly what the company does for the goal wise for the for the ABA wise.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the website information and some of the stuff I mentioned earlier, and of course the company's number, and of course the web. If I got some podcasts, and also more information and locations, all that's on the website as well. So for where the clinics are and everything, and I got.
Justin, can you remind me, because I want Blue Sprig used to be called something else. What was do you know
I
the
think it was
old?
shape behavior before that, bottom
Yes.
out wise, because I know the whole reputation of shape behavior was not good. I remember back in the days and everything else, and before the whole Medicaid thing and everything else, the ABA thing was private pay and all way back then and everything else before
Well,
Medicaid
there's
and
no question that
pro,
they've transformed, and we've had
yeah,
families that,
and private insurance to take as well for health insurance as well.
and that is a big deal. And that's a question that people have. So they do have, they have multiple locations all around.
Hmm.
They do take insurance. They do have all day ABA programs. They have, other programs as well, and they are often covered by insurance. So this may be something that, depending on where you are in your journey, if you have someone who is autism level 3, they're not thriving at school, there may be other programs that might work for them. And then even if it's not Blue Sprig, what I do know is when they do an evaluation, even if your loved one is not a fit for them, they're knowledgeable about other places that might be a better fit. So I think it's worth considering. And the other thing is, the big thing is that they take insurance, because all of us parents are hip to this pay everything out of pocket thing, and it adds up really quick,
Oh
especially when
yes,
you have
yeah.
therapies several times a week or every day. Okay, so let's talk about transition planning, Hannah.
All right. So we will just start with the basics of all the W's. So who should be included in transition planning? This is everyone who supports the individual, and that might change throughout someone's life. So transition planning, by state law or when it's at any age, but in the school system in Texas, it's legally 14. You have to start including transition planning within your IEP or uh, in school. And so that could be teachers. Once you turn 14, that should also be maybe vocational rehabilitation, Texas Workforce Commission, um, any family members who help support you who are going to be providing transportation, any therapist who can also help maybe talk about strengths and skill sets that will translate into job skills or learning skills or independent skills as well. So what is, and Justin, you chime in whenever if I'm missing something, okay?
Hmm.
So what is this the process of changing from one state to another? Again,
Yeah, especially as mentioned, our meetings, and they have this kid on, like late middle school and all can attend their own art meetings, and especially for like what electives they want to take and everything else, and especially transition programs in the school and after high school, like senior year, it starts and everything else too. School districts can't have them until age 22 wise.
That's
One thing
right.
I want to talk about is the changing from the state to another state. One thing that's very, very important for people to know is that Medicaid waivers are state specific. So if you were living in California and you moved to Texas and you were getting a Medicaid waiver in California, that Medicaid waiver doesn't transfer to
No.
Texas. And Texas has a 17 to 20 year waiting list for a Medicaid waiver. So we do advise that people, choose wisely. It doesn't mean that they can't get Medicaid in a new state, but the Medicaid waiver that maybe was paying you to be a caregiver or other services for your loved one may not transfer. So it may not be a great idea, or you want to research that closely. And then if they're already getting Medicaid in one state, you do have to reapply for the new Medicaid in the new state because it is again, state specific. You notify the Social Security Administration that your address has changed and you'll get reassigned to a new Social Security office. But there's many other things, but that is one thing that people don't know. And unfortunately, sometimes they find out after they move from a great state that had lots and lots of resources to one that has a long waiting list, and it can be problematic.
Yes, I have heard from it is unfortunate for people that move to Texas and have to get on that new wait list. And I'm laughing because it's terrible. But
Um, Anna, we had somebody in the chat box, and I know you've heard this a million times. Anna used to work for TWC. She doesn't now. She's got her own consulting firm, but they've really had no luck with VR. Lots of turnover, no follow up, always starting over the child's case and things like that. And so throughout this presentation, we're going to keep moving because I know we got a lot of slides, but slide something in there on help and support to get, to get that moving for any of them.
yeah, and we do have a slide on that later. Hopefully we will get there. But we'll get there, and I'm always available to help try and bridge that communication also. So then we'll get into the why. So that's kind of the biggest reason. Why do we care about transition planning? Why is it important to start at any age and as early as possible? And here are some statistics that help answer my why. So 34% of neurodivergent high school students go to college, and that's compared to 70% of neurotypical. 41% graduate from a four-year college versus 59. And then 20% of young adults with autism, spectrum disorder live independently. And then one of the bigger ones, and it's debatable, but 30 to 40% is the unemployment rate for neurodiverse adults. That's 3 times higher than that for people with disabilities, and that's 8 times higher than the rate for people without disabilities. And that 30 to 40%, you hear 80% more often than not, I feel like. And Justin, you might have a different answer that,
I mean, a lot
more
of it's
often I'm
pretty
hearing
much,
80%
yeah,
is a truer stat on
yeah,
that.
it's like 80% is more that unemployed thing or want to work kind of thing on that whole stuff with
Right.
the,
So, and that is why,
workforce thing.
absolutely. That's why it's important to start as early as possible, start bringing up the soft skills that are needed at jobs and learning how to emphasize those strengths or and any barriers that might come up. Start building strategies for the individual.
We had a question that says, what is the average expectancy for a young adult with autism to launch successfully as an adult? And I don't know if you have those numbers specifically, but one thing that I think of, Anna, is let's meet them where they are. So when our kids are ADHD or they have a learning disability or they're on the autism spectrum, their development is a little bit later. They're behind their peers as far as their development and where they are. But I find and have found with my own it's important to meet them where they are and celebrate the wins of where they are and then add from there. There's so many parents that want their kids to be where everybody else is. It's like we're all looking around, the world compares and we're comparing. But when we skip those important steps of development and training and whatever it is, for wherever they are, then there's gaps. And so I just always say it's not about looking back, it's about looking forward and just taking that next step. It isn't a race. And there in the world of social media, there is a lot of comparison and the Joneses always post the best thing on Facebook, right? Of all the
Right.
wonderful things that are happening in their life. But meeting them where they are and finding that fit that is truly a good fit for them, that is going to help them live their best life. And it's not comparing to everybody else.
Yeah. And something that you just said is really important too. And what I'm finding now, as I've been in Daisy consulting world, is that when we are trying to rush through or skip over steps to so that my 18-year-old is doing the same thing as the other 18-year-olds, when we're getting into our 20s and 30s, we still have to learn those steps that were required earlier on. And so it's hard to do, because we're all trying to live fast and move fast and get through the days. But to take a pause and if somebody needs a little more assistance, a little more support, a little longer learning time, then to try and accommodate that as well, and figure out what's going to help them later on. Always thinking, how are they going to do this later on and as independently as possible? So thank you for saying that. All right, Justin, you want to go through?
Yeah, some of that stuff, yeah, some of the struggles I had, throughout school years wise too, as well. So, just the speech occupational therapy when I was in grade school, doing more, this learn where my niche was to learning, the school environment and what's the ins and outs. There's just like social cues. There's a lot. It's hard to learn everything as well. And just to be able to drive and everything else, and learning about the employment field, the interviewings, the mock interviews, resume buildings, and stuff like that. So I'm going to go over it later on too in this presentation at time. And so it's just, yeah, it varies on whole things for people in the autism spectrum wise, because it might be a late learner. I did 2 years of theory of arts and a semester of speech class my high school years, so that was a big thing there. So just the more being more out in the social and learning stuff too. It's getting your foot in the door and everything else. Wise for employment, it's another journey itself.
But you're a
And do you?
success story. I mean, that's the thing is you are a success story. And so for those of you, and one thing that I can say is when I looked at my kid when they were, one in particular, when they were 15, I didn't think that there was hope of independence. Like they're not where they are going to be when you're looking at them at 14 or 15 or even 16 and they're still getting where they're going. A neurotypical brain is still developing until age 26, and our kids with disabilities are longer than that. So the time period may be longer. It may be a longer ramp up period and training and transition programs and things like that. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is I've talked to some people says my kid will never ever drive, and that may be true for many, okay? But what I wanted to say is that there are disability driving programs for people that have executive functioning issues, ADHD, autism. So think about a person who has had a stroke and they have had delayed, in their abilities and response times and other things. People have processing speed delays, working memory issues, and other things like that. And I know here in the greater Houston area, I know for sure that Tier Memorial Hermann does like a simulator. So like if a person had a medical condition and they want to make sure that they're going to be safe to get back on the road, they do have a program for that, and it's covered by insurance, and they do all kinds of assessments. So if you were wondering if your child, maybe not now, maybe it's 5 years from now, could drive, they could do that assessment, and it's not behind the wheel of a car. So if that assessment comes back green, which it did for my kids, then you could go get disability driving training. There are specific companies that do disability driving training, specific training for an individual for what their disabilities are. and response times and all that kind of thing. So I just wanted to give some heads up on that. You might not be there right now. We're going to keep moving because we're about 30 minutes into it. So I want to move on to the colleges and trade schools and things like that. And we do a webinar on higher education for individuals with a disability. There is a lot of misnomers out there by a lot of people that there's nothing for my child. There are programs for all kinds of people with disabilities, including intellectual disabilities. There's certificate programs, there's degree programs, there's lots and lots of programs out there. So I do suggest that you look at those early, and usually the transition counselor at the school that your child is going to is also familiar with some of these as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Anna.
Absolutely. And these are just the ones that are in Texas, and they might not be all of them who support individuals who are neurodiverse and have specific tracks for those students. I did also just want to add too, because Allison made another good point about the driving. I work with an adult man who just turned 33, and he just got his driver's license a year ago. And that's when he was ready to start driving. And he's still driving with someone else, but he's working his way up to driving independently. And I'll have to get the name of the place where he learned. I know it's out in Katy, but I'll include it in the email or before y'all send out the email.
Yes, and we have another guy that said he never thought his kid was going to drive and did last year at 27. So it is there. Again, like I said, I mean, what you see and then the time and development and the growth that happens, we can't always see where we're headed because sometimes it's so heavy where we're at right now. It seems tough. But anyway, just be encouraged. It does get better and doors do open. And, one thing I just want to say this as well. We had a webinar with Temple Grandin, and you guys may know, I mean, she's in her 70s, but she
Oh
herself
yeah.
is on the spectrum, well-spoken author, professor at a university, and a real winner. But one thing that she says is you can't do math, so what? What can you do? And we've seen people be successful with art or building things or computers, like other things like that. So that just stuck with me. You can't do, you're not a good writer, so what? What can you do? And I think we're trained when our kids are going through school to be hung up on that they're not doing their long division well, or whatever it is that they're not doing well. And we forget the fact that there are a lot of things that they are doing well, and it's kind of those gifts. What gifts does your child have? Because all people have gifts, even with disabilities, they all have gifts. And I think part of it is finding out what that is, what lights up that frontal lobe of the brain for that person. And you can't turn them off. When you turn them on to something that lights up that frontal lobe, you can't turn them off. That's the cool thing.
It is. And speaking along those lines as well, which I always love to share, are trade skills and thinking about futures and future career and employment journeys, is looking into those trade skills maker spaces that might be in and around you. Here in Houston, a big one is TXRX Labs. I usually have a video on here, but of course I did not bring it in, but I'll try and share it out before they send the big email out. It gives you a 3-minute tour of what it looks like. And these are jobs and trades where, yeah, you don't have to know, you might not need to know math if you don't like math, or, reading if that's not your skill set. But these are getting into like HVAC, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, weldings. They do 3D printing. If you can go and kind of take a tour online or in person to any type of makerspace, I promise you will blow you will be impressed, and you'll see things that you never thought of. TXRX, they partner with a lot of different companies. They just partnered with a company building cell phone batteries. So it's people who are very good at repetitive work, who can do detailed working and do it over and over to produce these batteries. There are tons of different opportunities that no one knows about, and so I would definitely
Anna,
highly.
I want you to work with Meredith on that. We have not done a webinar. I want to do a specific webinar and I want to invite these lab people to come on and we'll just do kind of a speed dating of who, what, where, when, why, how much, so that they can showcase each one of their institutions and how they work and how families can get involved because this is awesome. And the other thing that I would say, you've got colleges and trade schools on here. Our brains are trained to say that everybody needs to go to college. And I would argue that that is not true. Everybody does not need to go to college. And there are plenty of people. We have a deficit of people that are going into trades, and it's going to be a real crisis in the US in the future. Trades are important. There is a lot of money in trades, and a lot of families that have a loved one have these skills. These are repetitive, they can be trained in repetitive skills. They like repetition, it's always the same. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. So I want us to let's do a webinar and just do a whole webinar on these programs because I think that that opens up another door. We do the webinar already on the higher education for kids with disabilities, adults with disabilities, but we have not done this specific one. So I definitely want to do that with you.
Okay, yeah, I'd love that. And then apprenticeships too. So this is a growing opportunity out there. It's not this week, it's next week. I think it's Texas Apprenticeship Week. But going in, and these are all different levels of education. So some are certificates, some are no education, just right out of high school. Apprenticeships that do paid on-the-job training, and then you are in a career. And there are a variety of career options. If you go check out the website, you'll find a lot. If you are connected to TWC, right? I know I don't want to scare anybody away, but that's a connection into these paid apprenticeships as well. One thing to look for if you are looking into this further, you want to look at registered apprenticeships. So you make sure that word registered is there. And that means it is a paid on-the-job training apprenticeship. And these are long-term jobs. These are careers that AI will not be taking over. They need people to fill these positions long-term. And so something to look into that pay very well too. So they're all sustainable.
Yeah. From my point of view, I did start as an RBT, but the problem is for me, I couldn't grasp working with a child wise, so they put me more in an admin role, which has more I went to school for myself or my background, and so they created a position within the company wise to do that kind of stuff wise, data entry. So that's where I thrive at and doing what I'm doing nowadays. And that's the other thing too is like, stuff we can, shadowing somebody and everything else and learning from them and pick up on what they learn and probably, catch on easy that way too. It's the other thing, just having that more exposure environment wise. And so at least have something probably put on their resume or learn from them and to like actually take that with them to the actual field and the line of work and everything else. Too is the other thing too, be more on the you know, this career wanted to have the goals in mind, be set for wise. And when previous employment, I had, was more of a dead end job wise for me at the library. It just wasn't room for growth and wasn't realized what I went to school for, and it's just the scheduling and everything else. And just, each day's been different, really wise from what I'm doing nowadays and what I do for work, kind of thing. So, pretty
But
much,
the theme that I hear is growth. Growth and then also turning the knobs. Sometimes we got to turn the knobs to be, and we don't know until we try some things. And one of the things that I think that is fulfilling and good, and somebody mentioned this about volunteering for the Austin Pets
mm,
Alive, and we've had other families have success with volunteering. Volunteering could be a good start. There are a tremendous amount of volunteering opportunities, and that can be what I call dipping your toe in. right? You start dipping your toe in. Is it at the food bank? Is it with pets or whatever? I would say find something that you're interested in. There are volunteering things at the food bank where you're filling boxes, and it's a repetitive. You're getting cans. You're filling boxes for needing families. But there's a couple of things that happen. It's you're growing, you're they're growing, they're learning, they're meeting new people and how to work with other people, but they're also giving back to their community, which feels good. And when we do things that feel good, we want to do more of that. And then when we do it and it didn't hurt and it wasn't so bad and it was kind of good, then we might feel more comfortable. So if you have somebody that's not really comfortable with the idea of working, or you don't think that they can, or you want to try your hand at things, that's really a good place to start, is on that volunteering side of the thing. You don't have to go crazy. Maybe you volunteer one day a week. Maybe you start out one day a month. I mean, you just kind of start out. And then the thing is as you consistently do that and you build it, and it's one day a week. We know that we go on Wednesdays to volunteer at X, and we look forward to that. That is starting a routine, and part of some of the success in our for our loved ones is having that routine of having a plan and working our plan.
Mm-hmm. And in building your awareness, I think growing up, we're not exposed to all the different jobs that are out there. So, so if you can volunteer, you try different things. You don't have to like it; it's not long term, and then you can cross it off your list, or want to work harder towards it. Here are some common barriers to employment that we typically hear or experience a lot. So first is just where to start. How do I get a job? What is the process for that? Resources and training. So what are the resources that can help me to get a job, right? Training, that could be before you go into work, maybe soft skills training, some work readiness training. It can also mean training at a work site. So maybe the employer, the training is just, a whole book that you have to read through. Well, that's not accessible to everybody, or that's not the way that everybody learns. So that can be a barrier to keeping a job and knowing what the tasks are at work. Confidence and opportunity. So really feeling like you understand the job, you're ready to go, and having those opportunities as well, just what's out there and who can help me. Medical and educational support. Again, proper accommodations, knowing how to ask for them, what kind of accommodations can help you, what strategies can help you, and tools. Transportation, that's always a pretty big barrier for a lot of people. Job tasks and schedules. So again, having those tools or strategies once you get the job, how are you keeping that job? Do you need a checklist? Do you have a timer or different things that may help you get through your shift successfully? Justin, you want to add on to that one?
Just because sometimes, just getting that exposure and environment, it's the one of the more difficult things, especially when, trying to get your first job wise, is to need to have, where you have a back, somebody know on the inside, or where you do the interview. I mean, just trying to sell yourself is another thing. I mean, it sometimes can be real. It's not an overnight thing, or it's just a journey itself. It could be a little while, or especially when it comes to the application filling out, to what's on the job posting, what they want you to do, and everything else, and how many days a week you want to work. I mean, it's just different things on that. I mean, it's its own thing, Moise.
And that's a good point
Part-time,
too,
full-time,
because like,
whatever.
oh, sorry. The application process now is pretty tedious. You have to set up a whole profile for any job you want, if it's HEB or any kind of corporate job. So it's a lot of work to do all those steps, and not everybody knows or prepared to have to do all of that initial work.
I just like to say that some parents, it's just true that some of us are old school and like, just go in there and ask them if they're hiring or whatever. The days of that are kind of over. And they always say, well, just go to our website and any jobs that we have will be posted out there and you can apply online. Or go in there and ask them for an application. Most places do not have paper applications anymore. It's really a thing when we were in high school, but not a thing for kids nowadays. So, and it's not small to your point, Anna, because every job you apply for has this portal, right? So you've got to have a username and password for every portal, and they communicate through the portal. So having some way to keep up with your passwords for all these different portals and what you're applying for is going to be really important. Do you want me to go on to the next slide or
Oh, we got somebody who's asking actually a good question. Should a person be upfront about disabilities necessary accommodations job application? Like where if you mentioned about on the application, during the interview, or after you got the job is the good, that's, I mean, that's a mixed bag on that one too.
VR,
Yeah,
when VR is working well, there is training on disability disclosure. There are YouTube things out there on how to properly disclose. Do you have to? I mean, an employer can't say, "Do you have a disability?" I've always, as an employer, I think I appreciate if a person just says, I had a guy years and years ago. He's like, "Look, I stutter like crazy, and here's the things that I'm doing." He went to college. He had his MBA. He was this great, great, great guy. But that was kind of the biggest thing in his life, and it was a really big deal for him. But I mean, he was just like, I mean, it's not going to be hard for you to see. I'm trying really hard not to stutter during the interview process, but I stutter and I've stuttered my whole life, you know, and I just appreciated that. Like, I didn't think anything negative at all. It's just like, let me just put my cards on the table. This is what I'm not good at or whatever. But he was awesome. So I just, wanted to say that. So
yeah.
it's a hard question. What do you think? You
It
worked
is.
with TWC, so tell us what you think about that, Anna.
I think it's the answer that nobody likes to hear, that it's different for each person. And sometimes you might, if you don't need an accommodation or to get through an interview, you can get through the interview. And depending on what accommodations or supports you might need at work, if you get the job offer, then you say, hey, this is what makes me successful at work. And these are the things that help me to get through each day. And these are the accommodations that I'll need. Um,
I
it's
think telling the story of how, or like, I mean, not that it's a long drawn out story, but like sharing a little bit, like, so you can know where I am. I would like you to know where I've been, and showing, hey, I have this, but this didn't stop me. And I went to college and I did this and I got through high school and I completed the transition program and then I went through a work training program, and I'm always trying to better myself and move myself forward, and I'm open to feedback and I'm open to learning, and showing that despite the disability that has had an impact on the person's life, these are the awesome things that I've done, and I am looking forward to building on that. I think that tells a powerful story
I agree. And I
of
think if
perseverance.
the more you can bring in to an employer the tools with you or the
Mhm.
strategies, the more accepting they are, the less scary it is. Because sometimes you might use some language. Just you gave the example earlier about HR not knowing about that one form. You could say job coaching, and that employer might freak out, right? So if you use the right terminology or the right language to approach the employer, is very helpful as well. So you bringing the solutions with you. Um, what do you think, Justin?
I mean, well, the thing for me is also, yeah, because I know some of the transition fairs I've been to, like KD1, Lamar, Fort Bend ISDs, and we got some people talking about certain things. But when you talk to them or any of these other, like people group different, when they have these, what's not transition fairs, and they also uh, hiring events or whatever. I
And
mean, I don't know.
employment fairs, yes.
Yeah, those. I mean, I don't know if, like we mentioned that stuff to them. I don't know if like, and you got big companies. They got like HR and other things. All of that kind of stuff that you mentioned to them gets passed to them or whatever for employment kind of things. Kind of.
There are
Mm-hmm.
companies, I mean, and you can Google this, and of course, Anna knows this kind of stuff. that are really known for doing a good job of working with individuals with disabilities. Kroger is one, HEB is one, Academy is one. There are some big names out there. There's some smaller names out there as well. But there are a lot of companies out there that are known for working with individuals with disabilities. I have had families that we've worked with that their kid is actually retired from Kroger, was there 25 years, so that's not just a 6 month job thing that they were nice to a person for 6 months. I mean, it worked out for 25 years. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I think yep, I agree.
Mhm.
All right, we'll keep it moving. The top 5 strengths of neurodivergent individuals, and this was from one study. I think it was over like 2,000 individuals, and these were their top 5 strengths. So this is not, of course, not the only 5 strengths out there. And then we looked up jobs that require this strength or this skill set to do the job. And so some of these were looked at actually Googling or looking on Indeed and putting in these skills. So these are relevant to today. So hyper focus, creativity, innovative thinking, detail processing, and authenticity are the strengths that we are referring to for this, for the purpose of this. And then underneath, and some, of course, are you're going to see the same job under each skill. There's lots of jobs that require multiple skills, of course. So ones to look at that are all long-term too are those ones that are repetitive. You can keep going. That way.
Yeah, some of the stuff like building the doing research on the companies. It is what job is. I mentioned earlier, every practice, every hip, like HIPAA need like if you're working certain professions or whatever, like confidential things. You can't like I know one place I work at's the HIPAA policy because we deal with health insurance and everything else. So. And then reporting your wages to SSI, you always want to report that stuff to them always every month. Get like 2 paychecks if you work 2 weeks or whatever, because I can keep the pay same wise or whatever, two kind of things. And if you're able to speak our language, that's great too.
one thing that gets my attention, so we're busy, and when we're hiring, we have a lot of applicants, and I don't have very much time to get to them. So some days I get to them, some days I don't. Some weeks it's weeks, and we're behind. And so it's not that I'm not interested. Obviously, if we posted a job, then we have a job, but we've got so many other things going on. So, we hear a lot of people applying and then crickets, nothing. And so I can tell you from my busy schedule, that's how it happens here. It's not that we're not interested, we're totally interested. We're just slammed. And which is why we need to hire more people. And so, so that's part of it. But I'll tell you who always gets the meeting with me is the person that applies, or they end up sending a follow-up email, or they always get the second interview if I had an interview with them, and then I get a handwritten note from them saying thank you, it was a great meeting, thanks for taking the time. They took the time to send a handwritten note, and that gets my attention every single time without fail, because what it shows me is that person is proactive. They're interested, they want to get the job, and I want people on my team over, around it, through, they get it done. And so that shows me that they already have some of the skills that I am looking for. So just a best practice, and also encouraging your loved one not to take it personally. I had a kid that graduated from college and had applied for like some 200 and some odd jobs, and maybe ended up with like 5 interviews or something. Is terrible.
Nice.
I like the numbers. I mean, and it's nice that she had those interviews, but it felt like
Mhm.
ridiculous. Like, I put all this time, I went to college, I've got this degree, I have skills, I have, working experience behind me, and nobody's responding.
Yeah.
But I applied to the position that they posted, and I would argue it's not you, it's them. It is a true story, and you got to just strike while the iron's hot and be persistent, and the persistence pays off.
hmm
Yeah, that's what I always have to tell people too, is that it's a numbers game too. Like you got to, and it can take a minute, but you have to be patient and just keep on applying. Like try not to let it get you down. Figure out how to stay positive, because it's hard out there.
Yeah, it is.
You've got this on the screen, and I have to tell you, I have had some crazy ones over the years, like over the last 25 years, and have literally had somebody come to an interview, whether on Zoom. I never had anybody come to an interview in person in pajamas, but did have somebody come to an interview in pajamas for an interview. Like, stop it right now. Or here's another great one. A lot of young people have varying voicemails. Your voicemail matters on your phone. So if I call someone and I call Anna for an interview and I get her voicemail and her voicemail says, "Yo, what's up?" You know what I do? I hang up because that's
Yeah.
not who I want. So it's not just, you got to look the part, you got to talk the part, you got to dress the part, and those little things. And the other thing that I do, I Google people. I'm gonna
Hmm.
Google people and I'm gonna
Background
see.
checks. Yeah.
Yeah, we run background checks, but also I want to know what their internet footprint is.
Social media.
Do they have crazy internet footprint that would be, a downside for our company? Because that matters what we put out on the internet. And I know having those conversations with our loved ones, are important, and especially with kids with ADHD and executive functioning, where maybe we do things or we say things before we think it all the way through, and that
Hmm.
can have an issue as well.
Hmm. In addition to the phone number or the voicemail is email addresses.
I
There's
mean, yeah,
more than not, people are having to create a new professional email.
yeah, because yeah, especially how I got my job was the story itself too. So, like apply for a position that Katie didn't get it. One of the things I did unusual is called them back wise and told them what happened. They set me up with another location like for Stafford. And before I had a presentation of Autism Speaks, I met some of the people from the company there and told them my situation was I applied for a position and probably and had my interview for Stafford and pretty much afterwards got the job wise. So that's some of the unusual. There's like some unusual things that happened with this one too, but it worked out in the end wise for this is Blue Sprig's one too.
For sure. I like your idea, Anna, and I agree with that, that when starting to apply for jobs, you should have an email specifically for applying for jobs. But what I would also say is you better check that email, because
Yeah.
I've had people where they applied and they sent their resume and their resume was awesome and I wanted to interview them. And then I followed up with them. I left them a voicemail, which apparently they don't check their voicemail. Followed up with an email saying that we wanted to schedule an interview, and like 12 days later, they got back with us. Yeah, sorry, that's not working for me. That's not who I want. So,
Mhm.
so it's a matter of not only setting up the email, but actually checking the
Checking, yeah.
email, since it's not your main one. And we deselected those people before we ever even interviewed them for those reasons.
Hmm. Allison, I need you to come speak to one of my pre-eds classes.
I'll be happy to.
Reiterate all that. All right. So we'll go. We have 3 minutes left. Justin, you want to talk about networking and marketing quickly?
Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, if you have a LinkedIn account, Facebook or whatever, there's like, or have gone to these events or job fairs or research transition fairs or any else kind of things. That's more that networking stuff and hand out your resume, talk to people, see, might help get your more foothold in. Like Allison's been mentioning about certain people as well, or doing certain look apart wise and everything else, and put your best forward. Or if you have volunteered, or if you college or any of those kind of things, or trade schools. I mean, because you got
And
look look
and
to
Justin is
event.
one of the number one networkers I've ever met. When I started Daisy, he reached out to me. We connected. We went to lunch. We did all the
Hmm.
things, and he has connected me with other people. And if you're at a transition fair and you don't see Justin, then I don't believe you went.
That's for sure. And
He's
one
there.
other area that I think of too is small business owners. Do you have any family friends or friends of family, family friends of friends that have a small business? We've had a lot of families that their kid was hired by a family friend that has a business, and they had a lot of compassion and a lot of, they were just kind. And so maybe at first they were doing the individual a favor, if you will.
Right.
But then that person grew. And the employer had a lot of patience, and it blossomed into something beautiful. So somebody that likes your kid, somebody that has known your kid for a very, very long time, or known the family for a very long time, there may be repetitive tasks at their job. It might be filing. It might, I mean, there could be any other things. So if you're saying, I'm not even sure my child could work, but can they stack? Can they break down boxes? Can they, whatever, can they sort? There was a lot of things out there, and some of your friends or acquaintances or people kind of around may be able to help with that as well. So that is for sure. All right, so we're really out of time for today. Anna and Justin, are there any couple of last steps that you want to talk about? I want to make sure we did a little commercial for Blue Sprig in the beginning, of connecting in the ABA therapy and full-time versus part-time or whatever. But talk to us a little bit more about Daisy Consulting and what it exactly, I'm going to run through that. Everybody's going to get these. And if we need to have a part two of this webinar, we can definitely do this, because I know you got tons of great stuff in here. But talk to us about how this is all of Justin's contact information, Hope for Three podcast, Blue Sprig information, how to get him at Blue Sprig. So you're going to have that contact information, and this is Daisy Consulting. But give us a quick commercial of what is Daisy Consulting and why do we need to check it out?
So thank you. Daisy Consulting. I do have a pre-employment transition services contract under TWC VR. So I'm a provider providing those 5 topics: work readiness, self-advocacy, post-secondary counseling, on job coaching. So I have that. That's for ages 14 to 22. And
I need to pause for a second, because the big deal on that, what she just said, is that she has a contract. So that means if your kid is in VR and you've been hitting this roadblock and these dead ends, that basically Daisy Consulting can take over basically on all of the things that your counselor was doing or wasn't doing for you, and you can get the ball rolling while still VR is fitting the bill, is the bottom line.
Yes, happy to be that connector. And then also I provide one-on-one services for individuals who need a more one-on-one support. And I do that. Usually we meet like twice a week, and we go through whatever the support level is of the individual. It might just be the application and interview prep to get that job is all they need. It might be learning all of the soft skills to the application process, to talking to the employer, to the interview, and then job coaching. So that could be my services are concierge services. They're very different. I will say, just from starting this, some people, I'm not a transition person. I'm a work liaison. I'm a work coach, and whatever you want to call me, to get the individual ready and working at a permanent position, permanent job. I also do collaborations with other organizations. So I am working under a federal grant right now to support individuals who have that higher support need in job coaching at the work site. So that is a 15-month contract I'm working on right now. And that's in the Heights area. If anybody's in the Heights area, please reach out to me and let me know. So it's all free services included under this grant. And I have a couple other projects coming up also. So I love to collaborate. I love to work one-on-one. I love to partner with Justin. I love to do all the things.
Well, I love that you
flexible.
keep your ear to the ground, and like of all those labs and other things, other places. It's like, if not this, then what? Maybe college isn't where it is right now. Maybe it is a registered apprenticeship. Maybe it's one of those labs. Maybe it's volunteering. And you are a wealth of resources on that. And so I think meeting with the individual, meeting with the family, and understanding what the needs are, the bottom line is you custom design solutions for people. You're similar to what we do, but you're on the other side of the coin. We're the financial side of the house. but you do the custom designed solutions for where they're hoping to go. So I
I
think
mean, yeah,
that is
especially
awesome.
I know I had job coach throughout the years myself and learning stuff from that person wise and just more because there's like so many things about the workforce and trying to get interviews and it was like different phases. I know that to employment and I've been through the pay on that and learned from them over the years, lunch things and everything else and meetings and so many different things. It's worth it time wise on that, just especially brush up or just to help get your foot in the door with places too for work.
It's all learning, Justin, and I agree with that. Even for everybody on here, think to your first job. How old were you? Were you, 13 and babysitting? Were you 15? Were you 16? You're learning. You're learning how to communicate with others. Learning how to work through difficult situations or difficult people. It's like it's school. Even all through the years of school, you have different teachers, and some teachers you really liked and they were wonderful, and some
Hmm.
teachers you didn't like, but you probably learned a lot that year. Maybe they were mean, but you learned. Like, or maybe they were hard and we didn't like them because they were hard, but you really learned. So I'm always thinking about those growth opportunities about where we are, whether it's volunteering or working or school or transition program, that kind of thing. So we're out of time for today. This has been wonderful. Everybody's going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording. Reach out to Blue Sprig, reach out to Anna Kluth with Daisy Consulting, and we are going to schedule another webinar, and we're going to go through those idea labs and the other those labs that you were talking about, like trades and things like that, because that seems really exciting as another path. And college might not be right now. Maybe it's 5 years from now. Maybe it's 10
Mhm.
years from now.
I mean,
Maybe
even
it's
when they have Fort Bend these school buildings, they have a rest ceremony. I have one of the transition fairs over the years. They have like different apartments they have in that it's more of a tech career center and
yes.
or different
There's
things like
there's
from
so many.
welding to hairstylist, car mechanic. What there's a lot of that area. It's probably a field that's a need. I want to know that too.
For sure.
Mhm.
There's definitely a lot out there. So be encouraged. Just know that there are options and there are people out there to definitely help you on the journey. Everybody's QR codes and contact information is going to be on the slides that you guys get. And I will tell you, if you guys say no to communications when you sign up for our webinars, you won't get the email. Sometimes the email is going to go to your spam, so you better check it there as well. Thanks so much, everyone. It's certainly been a pleasure, and we will look forward to connecting with everybody again soon.
Hmm.
Bye.
Yeah. Right.
Bye. Thank you.
Mhm.